Greetings, dear listener. You're listening to the Jaunty Mantis podcast. This is Jesse,
This is Matty.
and we are presenting to you today a special bonus episode.
True
Why?
story.
Yeah, why do we do these?
Well, the Jaunty Mantis is released in seasons, 12 episodes per. And the reason for that is so we have time to take a breather, get extra recordings done, make sure we don't fall behind. So if you're listening to this, that means that we're in between seasons.
We made it.
So we'll be back soon. And until then, enjoy this episode, this bonus episode. It's not necessarily about role playing game topics, but it is very nerd adjacent.
And we hope you enjoy it.
Yep.
Welcome to the Jaunty Mantis. This is a podcast about tabletop role-playing games where two curious gamers such as us will ask some creative questions. Jesse, you're making a lot of motions in the screen, like it's time out or stop or, oh God, you're going to kill me.
Yeah, all of those at once. I contain multitudes.
Okay.
I'm the co-host.
Do we need to start over?
No, we never start over. We just run with it.
Why were you making those weird motions? Were you casting a magic spell?
I was. That was the somatic component.
Oh, what was the message you were trying to convey?
The message I was trying to convey is I was confused about what our topic was, which would alter how I was going to do the intro. But we don't start over, not one step back.
Well, the topic for today's episode starts with a question, and that question is, Jesse, are you familiar with the movie Mortal Engines?
Is that the Peter Jackson movie where the female protagonist covers her face most of the time because she doesn't think she's pretty, winds up hanging out with like Robo pre-apocalypse Frankenstein, and cities drive around eating one another?
Yeah.
No. Tell me about it.
I mean, does this count as a Peter Jackson movie? Did he direct this movie?
I think he directed that movie.
Are you serious? Oh,
I'm,
God.
does it change how you feel about the
It
movie now?
does. It changes how I feel about him.
Oh. I mean, have you seen his early canon though? Like,
His early movies are delightful. Frighteners is one of my favorite movies of all time. He did
oh,
not direct
earlier.
this movie.
Okay, he just
So
produced it.
yeah, so he co-wrote this movie with his wife and their friend Philippa Boyens, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the team behind the Lord of the Rings movies got back together and said, let's put this piece of shit on.
What if cities ate each other? Look out, it's London.
Yeah, so this movie takes place far in the future. They refer to us as the ancients, and cities are very mobile, and it is really weird, and not in any of the, well, okay, in some good ways. I will preface that because the question really is, would Mortal Engines make for a kick-ass setting in a role-playing game? And I think the answer to that, Jesse, is
The answer is their answer ever been no? Do we have a no episode? Like,
the answer is yes, is what
yes.
Jesse's trying to
Yes,
say.
it would make it pretty kick-ass. Well, this question, I'll warn you, listeners, it was not a surprise. I got texted this weekend, and my reaction was like, "Yes, finally, one other person has watched that movie and come to the same conclusion I did."
Yeah. Yeah. Did you like this movie?
Yeah, I liked this movie. It had fucking cities eating each other and like weird ass like robot Frankenstein dad. Like,
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
yeah,
What's powering the engines?
the other city they ate,
What part of the other city?
the metal or coal from their boilers.
Are we sure it's not the people?
I mean, it could be the people. That's
I
way
mean,
more grim.
So like that this is
You mean
I
like they're
think
burning the people for like combustion, or they have just people like on treadmills, just like everybody's on a little fixie bike
I
pedaling?
mean this the thing is like when we see a city eat another city, it's
Yeah.
very efficient at like getting all the people specifically. Like it's
Yeah.
very valuable to collect the people. And they make it a point to like, that the people are very important, these new people that they're bringing into the city. But the rest of the city is just grounded up for gears and parts and, all sorts of stuff. And it suddenly occurred to me that I was like, I think these cities are powered by people, and they backed out of having to show us that. And I think that's my biggest problem with this movie. If somebody who knew more about this movie was like, yes, that is the plot of this story. These city engines is why it's called mortal engines because they're powered by human beings. I think that would have been a much better movie. And I think that
Oh,
and I think that that's my biggest problem with this movie is it goes so weird but then doesn't do us the justice of kind of explaining things or at least showing us certain things, you know? And they make it a point of like slavery is a huge problem in this world and humans are actively hunted down as slaves, but then it's like, for what though? You know what I mean? Like, why is it so difficult to form actual, like, permanent settlements, not rolling death machine settlements, you know?
wasn't there a whole thing about the ground is not like stable enough or cracks or something? I don't know.
I mean, it could be that, again,
Like, I'll
another
tell
thing
you,
that could have been explained.
having watched this movie, I saw the trailer and said, I'm going to go seek out this movie. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't go into being like, what rich, engaging story or explanation for how the world's work am I gonna get? My standards were really low. Like, I want to see a city eat a city.
Yeah.
I saw that shit and I was like, that looks cool. And that was about the depth of my relationship with this film.
Yeah. And that's fair, but don't you think that it could have been better?
I think if they had made it as a better movie, it never would have been released by a studio.
Okay, that's kind of my point though, right? That's where the mortal engine theory comes from. That like there's a part of this where people are like, "Look, Peter, I know you guys gave us Lord of the Rings, but we're not making this fucking movie." And they're like, "All right, well, what if we remove this thing, this thing, this thing, and this thing, and we don't ever really talk about it?" And they're like, "Yeah, that could work. We'll put it out."
I mean, I don't, are you sure the man who wrote and directed Dead Alive would have a movie where cities are powered by burning living people?
Yeah.
Oh
Doesn't that
yeah,
make
that
sense?
probably makes actually a shit ton of sense.
Like, have you seen his other movies?
Yeah, no, Dead Alive is one of my favorite movies, and I have watched Meet the Feebles 3 times.
Didn't he make
Like,
Reanimator?
I think no, I don't know.
Who
Okay.
who am
By
I
the way,
thinking
guys,
of?
we decided between seasons, Johnny Manis is a movies podcast now, so get ready for some drafts with two people.
Yeah.
Uh, it'll be great.
No, he didn't make Reanimator. That was somebody else. I don't remember what I was thinking of. But anyway, Peter Jackson before Lord of the Rings, made really fucked up movies. And I feel like this is in that wheelhouse. Like, I feel like Mortal Engines is like the grown up version of Peter Jackson's like awesome, weird sensibilities when it comes to making crazy horror movies or thriller movies or gross movies. And I think that's a huge part of my disappointment. But we're not talking about the caliber of the movie itself. We're talking about would it make for a great campaign setting? And I think I'm like I can't wait to play in this campaign setting. Like if this, you know what I mean? Like, are we sure this wasn't Peter Jackson's campaign setting? Like
Yeah,
for his
I'll put it
internal
in riffs
D&D
were
group?
good.
Yeah. I mean, how cool would it be where you have this entire world full of these, rolling death machine cities that are preying on each other, and are trying to get away from each other. And like, I love, like, as confusing as Frankenstein robot dad was, there was a part of me that was like, what is this thing? What like where did they have these like reanimated people that are like robots sort of. And one of them, I mean, I guess spoilers for Mortal Engines, but like one of them is tied to the main character and there's this like grim aspect of their relationship. And when the other shoe drops about it, it's very like heartwarming and interesting, and it's a very like nice twist on our understanding of this robot. We think it's like a Terminator, like it's out to kill her in this universe. It's to hunt her down, you know. Um, and I was like, I want to play one of those.
Again, I'll put it in riffs where I've got the rules that can do it. You're going to need an additional spreadsheet for your
Mm.
character.
Yeah, that's great. That's all I need is an additional spreadsheet. So Jesse, what you came to this conclusion sooner than I did. What is it about Mortal Engines that would appeal to you as a campaign setting?
I mean, it's just full of set pieces for cool stuff.
Hmm.
You've got like built-in conflict. Like it's cool. It's got an epic vibe. Um, I mean, it just has all the cool things of a good role playing. Now, I don't necessarily know what an adventure would be like, but as like
Hmm.
as far as like a place to set adventures, I just thought there was lots of cool bits, and I immediately like set my mind to what I would hack to run it, like
Okay.
because my stupid instinct from back in the day that I would now, I don't think if I had do it, if this thought had come to me now, I wouldn't have done it. Is like, how would you have rules for the cities? Which is like the least interesting question. Like,
Why is that the least interesting question?
because the cities, I mean, I guess they're characters, but they're not player characters,
Oh,
right?
they could be.
Well, now I'm interested.
They could be.
Immortal Engines, the game of playing mobile city states. It's
Immortal
a cozy
Engines, the
game,
game of playing Mortal Engines.
but you're actually the engine.
Well, think about it. Like you create your it's like a tier level, right? So you're not just going to create the player characters that live in this mobile city, but then why not also give the party as a creative session zero exercise the mechanical aspects to just create the city? Like purposely make it the smallest one you can, right? And then like, what are these core things that are available in this city? And you have all these modular buildings and functions that like make this Mortal Engine unique, in the grand scheme of things. And then, because I like the idea of like, if they want to take their Mortal Engine city out and fucking start like death rolling other cities, let's make it happen. You know what I mean? I'd be like, what do you guys want to do with your Mortal Engine? They're like, I don't know, go fucking fight another city. I'm like, cool, let's do it. Like, so like
And thus,
what kind
a
of part of the
fearsome
character?
reputation was gained by Schomburg.
Come on, people would have fun with this,
Yeah, they
you
would.
know?
I
Like,
just don't know if it needs to be a mechanically intricate, like roll to hit with your city versus their city. Cities have hit points, all that sort of stuff. I would say if I wanted to do it and not have it just be like, I don't want another system the players have to learn.
mm-hmm,
And that's the thing sort of about vehicle combat and a lot of games that are on the crunchier side, is that vehicle combat is a whole other system you have to learn that has its own maneuvers and yada, yada, yada. And I will say this, we are recording this just in time for whenever it comes out, pretty much right after season two. I
mm-hmm.
don't think Kevin Crawford solved that one, actually. It's
Okay.
fairly elegant. It's nice, but like when you introduce a whole other set of rules because vehicles move differently than people, um, it's just something else the players have to learn. And there are groups where system mastery is a thing all the players strive for. I don't get to play in any of those.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So I would actually say like the two initial approaches I had, would be something along the lines of like Fate,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
like just you bolt on an aspect for the city and then a couple traits and some get some fudge dice, and that's how cities interact. And that's coming from Mind Jammer,
Okay.
which was a giant Fate book, but was one of the things they kept saying is like everything is a character. This
Mm-hmm.
planet, it's a character. It has aspects, blah, blah, blah. This city, it's a character. They also did a really cool thing where the starship was all, they were all piloted by AIs that had like a robo form they could inhabit and come down to the planet. So the PC ship is one of the characters. And I was
Oh,
like, that's
nice.
sort of cool. So something like that for interactions between cities.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or I wouldn't use vehicle combat rules for it. I'd use the faction play rules from a Kevin Crawford book, just kind of sped up a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. So instead of a turn is a month,
Mm-hmm.
like a turn is an hour, or and then
Gotcha.
there's all the actions like gain resources or attack a rival or blah blah blah. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a couple ratings. It's a pretty great system.
Yeah. I mean, the way I would do it is I would try to keep it as simple as possible, definitely. And I would try to, excuse me, getting over a cold. Um, but what I would try to do is I would add some sort of defensive or offensive weapon module aspects of it, right? So I would say, okay, well, your city can have like one weapon, one defensive weapon module or offensive weapon module. And then one of those is like your city can shoot like, spears with wires on them over to the other city, and then you can do a boarding party. I would just stick with simple shit like that. Like you could get guns, I guess, cannons for your city, and that'll do X amount of damage. But it ultimately, in the grand scheme of like vehicular city combat, I don't know if we need a full set of like dynamic rules for how that works. But if somebody came up with one, I wouldn't kick it out of bed. I'd, I would want to try it.
Are there, I can't remember. It's been like, I feel like a good long time since I saw this movie. Um, was there a fight between two comparably sized cities in it?
No,
Yeah.
no. There
Because
was
like
a,
the thing is like for a city to fight, it basically has to have gears in the front of it that are big enough to just consume.
hmm. Yeah, so it's not a thing that really has to come up, but it is something that should come up, being in danger, pursuing, or fleeing from, another city or enemy that should come up over the course of gameplay, you know.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of a D20 game that you actually introduced me to, which is called Dragon Mech.
That was the other one that was kicking around the back of my head.
So explain Dragon Mech for our audience.
Um, Mecha, it's fantasy mecha, like
Hmm.
spring powered, steam powered, magic powered. But it's, yeah, you get fantasy mecha, and it was for 3.5. And there was this whole thing about like the moon exploded and chunks of moon rock came raining down, which brought these aberrant lunar dragons and their spawn. And people figured out how to build these mechs so they could survive a world where it was raining fist-sized chunks of rock all the time. And
Hmm.
yeah, it was kind of
Yeah,
neat.
in the in the um in the height of the D20 era, with the open gaming license for 3.x, there was a ton of D20 games, from different all sorts of different publishers. And it usually centered around one really good idea, and then the rest of the concept was kind of what you would expect, where it's like the Dragon Mech part of Dragon Mech is really cool. The specific rules around like making that concept work, really cool. Everything else is your run of the mill D20, classes, feats, spells, all the same kind of stuff, you know. it's definitely at the top of my list of like if I were to take the best concepts from all that era's D20s and put them together in one game, which is still something I really want to do. Yeah, Dragon Mech would be in that list.
Just it occurs to me, this is an aside, but what's wild to me is like back then when Dragon Mech came out, Drive Through RPG was just starting to get its feet under it. Like I
Hmm.
think they had just got the license to do like AD&D older stuff, and like there was not a huge indie publishing scene. So most of these ridiculous gluts, if you were not playing during that time, like astounding glut of third party material, was people that just like working out of a garage or whatever, like wrote whole books, laid them out and got them printed and then somehow sold them into distribution at game stores. Like
Right.
Dragon Mech, you can get it as PDFs now, but it was not PDFs back in the day. It was
Yeah. Yeah. Dragon Star comes to mind.
Dragon Star.
The fifth, what was it called? The fifth age or something like that. What was that one that was a competitor with Eberron before they chose Eberron?
Oh, I'm not that was the urban legend. I don't think that's actually true.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, okay. So Fantasy Flight released like a whole couple lines of fantasy settings that the buzz was these were the runners up for the create your own campaign setting.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw an interview with Keith Baker and something about that, like something about that made me like, oh, maybe that wasn't true. So there was Dawn Forge,
That's what it was.
which is the one where like there aren't minotaurs, there is the Minotaur. The
Mm,
world has just been created, and it's like this classical Greek sort of heroes, and Titans are still running around and blah blah blah. And then there was Midnight,
mm-hmm.
which was Lord of the Rings, but Sauron won 100 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was probably one of the most cheerful RPG books I ever read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very grimdark.
People did not want to, the people who wrote that did not want to leave the grim 90s behind.
Yeah. We played a little bit of it.
Yes.
Yeah. Your best magical item is like they have those quasi magical items in Midnight, right? Where if you find an actual magical item, you don't want to pick it up. You don't want to use it. It's going to immediately start drawing, you know, bad attention. And yeah. And it was like the opening section of it was like you're never going to win. Like the shadow being for Sauron has won, controls everything. You're just part of, at best, a meager resistance that's been able to hold on for this long. And it's only a matter of time. Yeah. So, but those weren't the finalists then, because I always thought that they were Dawn Forge and Midnight.
Yeah, I did too.
Gotcha. Yeah. And there was all sorts of other D20 books, like the
Iron
there's
Kingdoms, War, the like,
yeah, no, Iron Kingdoms was really cool.
this was a cool looking book.
Iron Heroes, I
Yeah, that was
think.
later in the run.
Or what was Iron Kingdoms then?
The thing that led to like War Machine, the miniatures game.
Oh, okay. I was thinking of something else.
It was the steampunk one where you were like, oh, it started actually as a D&D campaign. It had like warjacks where you had like a steam and magic powered giant robot buddy you commanded. And
Hmm.
I actually have funny. Uh, I have the 5e version of that.
Oh, there it is.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if you, I mean, in order to use the rules for our Mortal Engines game, which system do we run it in then?
Basic expert D&D.
That's your answer to everything. God damn it.
Yeah, because it's a good answer.
Yeah. I would run it in Uh, I wouldn't run it in 5e. What would the character classes be like for a Mortal Engine game?
I
Because
actually wonder if this is a Blades in the Dark hack.
that's your second answer to everything.
They're good systems.
I mean, you want heroic characters, but you don't want character like there's such a sense of
Exalted.
pseudo pseudo fantasy in that, or sci fantasy. What genre is Mortal Engines? That's
Sci
got to be sci
fantasy.
fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think of like the main characters. Like you have the main character, the woman with the scar who wears the mask, and she's good at stabbing and good at jumping around and finding things and stealing things, and she's used to gritty reality. And then there's the guy that's kind of like gotten caught up in the adventure with her, and he's an idiot, right? I don't know what character class that's for. Um, the actor that plays him is Klaus in the Umbrella Academy, which, dear listener, there are very few actors that fully encompass a superhero persona. Robert Downey Jr. is one of them as Iron Man, Gal Gadot is another as Wonder Woman, and then there's the guy who plays Klaus from Umbrella Academy. Perfectly cast. Yeah. So then you would have some sort of like knowledge-based character. I guess that's what his role is, like a historian or an expert, some sort of adventuring intellectual, I guess. Because that's I don't know, but like their whole view of history is totally screwed up, you know, because of everything that happened. You
Cipher system.
cipher system. Why do you say the cipher system?
Because like city components are ciphers. Like ancient artifacts of the
Gotcha.
ancient times are ciphers. It's
Yeah.
Numenera with the weird slid down to one by comparison to the rest of Numenera, not by
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You could add a magic system because there's obviously like nanotech because there's the weird robot guy who's like
hmm
whatever. Like you don't have to have an actual character class that figures out stats for the robot guy because it's just a descriptor combination
Right. Yeah.
that makes it playable. Um,
Yeah, I think you're right. I think whatever system you would use for a Mortal Engines game, I think the Cypher system would be very good because you don't want to take it too seriously.
yeah,
You don't want to take it too seriously.
and people are hunting for ruins of the past. That's the ciphers.
Right.
And it's baked mechanically into it, the cause of adventure. And then the things that make the adventure get weird. And
Yeah, these things of the past are either ciphers or artifacts, essentially. Yeah.
well, if you then had like a scale, and I think probably the cipher system core rulebook has a scale thing in it, right?
For
For scaling things up. You could just have city scale, like that's a character shared by the whole PCs, and they have their own ciphers of things recovered from the ancient ruins that are like
right.
your spear wires or whatever, but people are off hunting for them.
hmm Yeah, you're right though. Like the cipher system is cool because of the ciphers themselves, which are one use, essentially magic items with random levels of power and capability and function. And each player character can basically hold a certain number of them. And you're meant and encouraged to use them up. You don't hoard them. And so that variability of encountering powerful items and then using them is what adds a dynamic and interesting layer to the cipher system. That's why it's called the cipher system, because the ciphers are the key. And in this world, essentially what you're saying is that because it's a post-apocalyptic world with a link to the past in which certain items from the past are coming into play, but they've been changed because of the setting, then those are essentially the ciphers,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're junking old cities or going through the ruins of old cities or whatever the case may be, finding like abstract pieces of technology that can produce a certain effect, and then poof, they're gone, you know. Yeah, and that does add a different dynamic. I would steer clear of having some sort of spellcaster. I don't think that's I didn't see any evidence of that in the Mortal Engines movie. But you certainly could do it if you wanted to. I just, I think the ciphers themselves are enough.
Yeah, you get rid of the magic caster. You've got the knowledge character. You've got the, whatever your descriptors are, but basically the breakdown of the fighty guy, the thinky person, and the quick, nimble one.
Well, the social one as well.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I do like of the cipher system is that their skill focused character is more of an explorer than they are a rogue. I mean, you could certainly make a rogue, but I do appreciate that because, like, rogues always bother me. It's always like, well, this is just your generic skill user. We call them a rogue. So I don't know. But yeah, then the cipher system uses, they use those prompts to create the character.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, your character is a charming explorer, who speaks with the dead or whatever. What are those called again? I'm blanking on it. I'm a huge fan of the cipher system and I can't think of it.
You have a descriptor,
Yeah.
uh, a type, and a foci.
The foci, that's it. Yeah. So the foci are, depending on how crazy you want to get with them. And there's a lot of really cool, like, science fantasy style foci in the base game.
Yeah, like I could be if you were just someone that hated the AI or the robots or whatever. Like I'm a brash destroyer who battles robots and automata.
Right.
That's
And that's your
where your
character.
powers come from.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's the magic right there is the cipher system. Interesting. Yeah, the different foci are things like bears a halo of fire, which is if you wanted to make like a spellcaster or a superhero style character that has a lot of like burning fire-based magic. But then there's ones that are a little bit more mundane, but are still exciting. Let's see here.
Commands mental powers, conducts weird science, consorts with the dead,
Yeah.
controls gravity,
Yep.
defends the weak.
Right. And then each one of these gives you like a power or a skill that, and this is my favorite part of the cipher system beyond the ciphers themselves, but it's like it's not an additional thing, it's an additional option.
Yep.
So if are a mad scientist, it's not like you get a set of mad scientist powers or whatever in addition to what you have. You get more options. Like you have to give up something else to take that.
So I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, and it's been a bit late in the episode. So here's the core conflict resolution in Cypher for everybody. Your character has basically three stats, and they are I can't remember the exact name, but they are like strength, speed, and smarts.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's it. Those are like pools that are also kind of your hit points. So the values tend to be between like at starting level, like between 6 and like 10, maybe get up to 11, but something like that. You also have a rating called Edge, which is how many of your primary you can spend without penalty. So everything is a multiple of 3, I want to say. So if you're fighting a level 1 foe, the DC on a 20-sided die is 3.
Mm-hmm.
The it does like 3 damage like if it hits
Mm-hmm.
you, like that's, yeah, everything's like that. um If it's attacking you on its turn, you roll 3 to dodge. DM doesn't really roll any dice in Cypher system.
Right.
And you can burn points from your pool. You can burn your hit points to increase the die. I want to say by 2 per point you spend. Like to just buy an automatic success. The GM
Mhm.
tells you what the DC is. Like it's going to be DC 12. And you're like, well, I'm just going to spend this many to succeed automatically.
Right.
The edge value lets you not actually burn the points for doing that. So your edge goes up as you level up or tier. There's like 5 tiers. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
really simple to run, really simple to learn.
Yeah.
Um, and if you did want to do it, I'd recommend buying like one of the mini card decks of ciphers available so you can just draw them at random because it's more fun when it's random and it's supposed to
Right.
be.
Yeah, it's might, speed, and intellect are the base stats. Yeah. I'm looking at the book right now. It's been a while, but it's all coming back. And really, the cipher system lets you, as the game master, customize the mechanics or offerings for characters as you want it in your adventure or your game, you know. So maybe you don't use the magic style character. There's actually ways for you to modify, the other types because there's the main type and then there's the subtype. So you could be like a warrior and then you could go into there's like a warrior, an explorer, an adept, and a speaker. I think those are the core types. And then you can modify them with flavor. So you could you could give the warrior type a technology flavor, which gives them some base technology abilities. So it's a really simple and elegant way to give the game master the tools to make the kind of game that they want the that they, like if you want to make Mortal Engines into your campaign setting, Jesse's right. The Cypher system is a great way to do it.
We solved it. We did it again.
Oh man, we're just perfect at this.
I know, right?
And dear listener, jauntymantis@gmail.com. That's our email address. And if you also watched Mortal Engines for some reason, I, I don't know if you should write in, but that's our email address if you want to. I don't know, Jesse, does our social media work at all?
Yeah, I still look at it every once in a while just to get mad.
Why are you
Um,
getting mad?
because it's Twitter and
Oh,
that's the whole it's like AI designed to feed you things that will get you mad to engage with it so they can then put advertisements in front of you.
oh
Which
wow.
like if you think about it, like why would you show someone an advertisement when they're all riled up and pissed off about something? That probably is not a great investment.
Wow. It's almost like you're inside my head. I've been hating social media for years. Now it's cool. All right. Jesse, anything else about Mortal Engines or our Mortal Engines campaign setting?
I think that if we had to have a takeaway, that if you find some piece of media or you have some great big high concept campaign, depending on the era you learn to play in, it may be really, really tempting to pick a system that's crunchier. And the crunchier the system is, the more you're probably going to have to tweak in order to make it fit what you work,
Mm-hmm.
what you are trying to make. And the more you tweak, if that system was fairly well designed, like 3.5 is, like
Mm-hmm.
I know the critiques of it, fair, whatever you're
Totally.
saying in your head, it's cool, but it worked for what it did. You could roll for virtually everything in the game. Um, and it was a system I had system mastery of at one point. Um, so like, yeah, it worked. So did 4E. Sorry. Uh, but yeah, go with a simpler system. where you have a
Mhm.
lot more room to throw in those big ideas. That would be my suggestion as a takeaway.
Yeah. And my suggestion would be see if somebody else has already done it and have them lead you to that.
Oh, did you
Like
look?
I have not. That was going to be the next thing I was going to do is did anybody make let's make that the end of the episode project. Mortal Engines RPG.
Oh, right there on Reddit.
Hmm. I have this concept a little in my fantasy setting. Let's see here. Mortal Engines RPG. Has anybody else set a game there?
Mortal Engines RPG database. Population, speed, traction status, industry.
I mean, are there any like city builder RPGs? I
I
mean,
don't think.
I feel like the reason why this is a good idea, or at least a decent idea, is because so many of those old role-playing games, there was that idea of like, well, not let's like have our own city. Like our D&D characters acquired all this money. Like let's buy a city.
Did you ever play Kingmaker?
No. What's
We did that.
Kingmaker?
It was a Pathfinder adventure path where you like wind up starting a city and like building it. And so there's like a whole mini game of managing the city. And
Hmm. Gotcha. I mean, I don't see anything super convincing. Let's see.
well, I see a blank character sheet and the stats are strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma.
Uh-huh. Where did Engines come from? Is that an original idea by them, or is it like a book they adapted?
I don't know.
Let's see here. It's based on the 2001 novel of the same name by Philip Reeve. Interesting. Takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where entire cities have been mounted on wheels and motorized and practice municipal Darwinism. Its movie universe is different from that of the books. Interesting.
Game facts. Mortal Engines was amazing if you love 90s RPGs. December 14th, 2018. Easily the best RPG film ever.
I'm telling you, nerds want this setting.
Yep. Yep. They do. Oh, it's a quartet of novels.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. It's YA steampunk.
Why not?
Yeah. I'm reading the setting synopsis for the books right now.
We'll
Apparently, the
read it
books
out
and the movie
loud.
are very different.
Yeah.
Well, excuse me. Well, we're talking about the fucking movie.
Right. Because we don't know what the book says.
Yeah. For all we know, the book is awesome. Yeah. I'm telling you, nerds want Mortal Engines, the role-playing game. I challenge any nerd to not want this.
I do just want to throw in this is unrelated to this Mortal Engines, but
Oh.
apparently this is where we are as a part of the zeitgeist of the hobby. At Walmart today, Carrie spotted a book called Dungeons and Drama by Christy Boyce, the author of Hot British Boyfriend. that has a picture of a blonde girl and a guy throwing some polyhedrals in a dragon t-shirt with elf ears on, staring into each other's eyes while she holds a lute. Would you like to hear the synopsis?
You had to ask.
No one loves musicals more than Riley Morris. Her dream is to be a Broadway director, but when the spring show is canceled, Riley has to figure out a way to bring it back. Easier said than done. She's stuck working at her dad's game store, the place that means more to him than his family does. Not fair. I mean, like, can't really blame. Riley
Accurate.
can't waste time on a dead end job with her entire future resting on making a name for herself, so she convinces her coworker, Nathan Wheeler, the floppy haired, glasses wearing guy she barely knows from school, to help her. In exchange, she'll help him make his gamer girl crush jealous. Plus, it won't hurt to show her egotistical ex, Paul, just what he's missing without her. Soon, Riley and Nathan are a couple, and people seem to believe it. But selling the ruse means joining Nathan's role-playing game. To Riley's surprise, the game is almost fun, and even more surprising, flirting with Nathan doesn't require much acting as she thought it would.
Wow. That's amazing. And also terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah. All
well,
right.
good on that author. Get that money, girl.
That's what I'm saying. Look, I don't have a problem with the author. It's look, the stuff is successful right now. That ain't always going to be the case. We're going to go back into obscurity where we belong, in my opinion.
But then I
All
won't be
right.
able to like spend stupid amounts of monies.
You'll
This,
still be
look at
able
that.
to spend stupid amounts of money. No one's gonna stop you from doing that. It
Okay.
it's just popular culture is gonna get sick of us again. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? They're just gonna be like, yeah, superheroes and role playing games, D&D, we get it. Yeah, we all enjoyed Stranger Things. That's over. Move on to something else. We're all into fucking colanders now. All
I'm
right,
here for that future. And
all
also,
right.
I hope Taylor Swift outlasts us
Why?
because that thing you described about the pop culture doing it's going to happen to her too.
Oh, you think the culture's gonna turn on Taylor Swift?
Yeah,
Interesting. Um, okay. I mean, everybody gets turned on eventually. They're turning on The Rock right now.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I guess they smelled what he was cooking and they didn't
Yeah.
like it.
I mean, apparently if you make enough terrible movies, people start to get fed up with you at some point.
But he was in the
So,
film adaptation of Rampage. How could people be mad at that?
yeah. I don't know. Are we being serious?
Yeah, no, we're back to being a film podcast again.
Yeah, well, it's a bonus episode, Jesse. And
Okay.
listeners, if you have any ideas for bonus episodes, I know we already tried to end this episode, but we're going to try again. If you have an idea for a bonus episode, you can send it to jauntymantis@gmail.com. Maybe you're like Harry Pledger and you've devoted your Instagram to running an RPG of Mortal Engines, which will most likely result in you losing all your normie followers. I don't know. But in that case, get out there and, do something with those amazing creative ideas you have.
Yeah, strive to advance in the system of municipal Darwinism and play some fucking games or some shit.
Yeah.